Jigs, how the hell are you?
I'm doing really well. How about you guys?
We are good. Danny, have I ever told you how kind Dan Jiggets was to a young, enormous, long-haired producer who looked a lot like Matt Spiegel in 1994, 95?
Oh, God.
You were so welcoming and so kind. I was intimidated, Jigs. You were a beautiful man, so it's always nice to talk to you.
Oh, thanks, Spiegs, man. I tell you what, we knew that you were extremely talented when you walked in the door. By the way, how's the group doing?
Oh, we're good, man. We're
You guys
good.
still performing?
Yeah, we've been taking some COVID time off, but we'll get back together. Come to a show sometime, Jigs. I'll set you up.
I just might do that.
Sit on
sit on
stage.
Have everything comped, you know that.
As you deserve, sir.
Yeah, he's never offered me to sit on stage. He said he, sleeps with the guy who knows the guest list or whatever your line is.
Right.
But
Exactly.
Jigs, can you believe it's been 30 years?
I know, man. Isn't that something? It seems like yesterday, though, when we first got things kicked off back then in the early 90s, man. It's hard to believe that it's been that long, that when we first got rolling, I still remember that old bunker over there on Belmont. And we always wondered why was the legs of the antenna, which was up about, I don't know how many feet it's up, about 300 or 400 feet or whatever. But why is it sitting right next to where we have to sit?
Yeah.
And how much radiation are we getting?
Oh, I'm sure that giant concrete wall that surrounded it, that totally protected everybody from the cancerous waves.
Gets everything right in the building,
Yeah. Tell us how it came together that you, a Harvard graduate, former professional football player, erudite, thoughtful, educated black man, ended up with former hot dog salesman, high school dropout, and not quite erudite Mike North. How does that happen?
Match made in heaven,
yeah,
right?
how does it happen, Jigs?
Well, I tell you what, I've been working in media, as you well know, for since like 1985, and I was coming off of about an 8-year run with CBS Sports, and I was doing some stuff with ESPN and whatnot, and working locally on Channel 2 and Channel 32, and then all of a sudden I got a call through one of my guys, Steve Mandel, and he says, what do you think about this whole deal about the score? And so we kept talking between Harvey, Wells, and the whole group. We just got to talking about it, and Danny Lee asked me, to come in, and I did, and Seth, all those guys, we sat down and talked, and we went over to Mike's restaurant to talk to him because they said, well, let's see how this thing, would work. And basically they put it all together. And they said, would you mind working with this guy? I said, I'm fine, man, whatever. And then we sat down, Mike and I started having some conversations, and I'm thinking, this guy's goofy, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. And it was indeed a lot of fun, for a number of years. It was a great run.
Okay, so it was a lot of fun. I was wondering if there was at all any, because of all of the credentials that you had and your media experience, and then here's the hot dog guy. Was there any resentment? Like, wait, why are we getting equal billing here?
No, not at all. You know what? Look, one of the things you learn early, and I don't care, where you come from. It's basically that, you sit down and you listen to people and you talk to people. And it doesn't make any difference what your credentials are. It's what you know, and also what you don't know. And Mike obviously, had a great background in following sports. I mean, that was very clear from the beginning. So I knew it was going to be fun. I mean, he was off the wall sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. Then sometimes I gave him that look. Sure, absolutely. But I think the thing was when we both started out is we wanted to make it work, and that's the important thing. Is, you have people working in the same direction. And I felt so sorry for our first producer was Abby Polonsky. I felt so bad for her because she took all the heat from everything that we did. And then we got Jesse Rogers a little bit later on, and the little guy took it to the next level. The little guy was a great producer for us, and that's part of what helps make it all happen, too, is, the people around you that you work with who really kind of kick in and make sure that everything is a success. And Mike and I just, came in and did our deal and worked hard. And I think that's one of the things that people kind of forget is the fact that, you don't become successful because somebody hands you something. You become successful because you work hard at it and you try to get better every day, and that's what we did. And I can honestly say this: we never took a day off, and we never mailed it in, and that's part of why you feel so good about the work that you did. We never mailed it in. Every time we came out to play, and that's something that can't always be said about a lot of people in the business. And so I think that's what helped make us the success that we were.
That's I remember seeing that. That's absolutely true. Dan Jiggets is here with us on Parkins and Spiegel on 670 The Score. He made it work because he's an offensive lineman. It's kind of like bass players. Like you got to work together, right? You got to work in concert. You've got that personality, Jigs. So these days, if we want to take a call, we just look over at a monitor and somebody took care of that for us. If we want to look something up, we search the internet and it's done in 3 seconds.
Right.
Paint us a picture of some of the challenges early on for you and North.
First, if you wanted to, if I didn't know something or Mike didn't know something, we had a bunch of media guys sitting over to my left. And, I could just literally turn around and grab a media guy to figure out, somebody's background or whatever. And the other thing is, in terms of who was on the line, well, first it started out with basically Jesse writing the names down on a sheet of paper and holding them up. And we'd go from line 1 to line 2 to line 3. And the poor little guy he was writing like crazy the whole time for 4 straight hours, just going bananas, writing down names. And sometimes, people would drop off the line and we'd go to them and they wouldn't be there or whatever. That's how it started out. And, but I tell you what made a success out of the show, I think, was the fact that we were so interactive with the fans and people calling the station. We had a dedicated group of callers that were just absolutely fabulous. And it helped make the show, and I think it helped make the station. And that interaction was, in the early part of sports radio, I think, with the listening public, is what made it a huge success. Is the fact that those people were actually part of the mix of what we were doing.
Yeah, you guys were the voice of the fan.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's still that way or not, but when you take calls and you hear what people have got to say about the teams and how they feel. Yes, every now and then you get some people that are a little bit off the wall, but that's okay. That provides you with another segment.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun, just dealing with people and talking to folks, man, and letting them, vent themselves and say what they felt about all the different teams and what was going on. And that's how the conversation started, and it was a conversation that would go on sometimes even after the 4 hours were up, when we would, toss it over to Dan and Terry, and we continue for another half an hour, and we weren't supposed to. But, the conversation got so wild that we had to keep rolling with it.
See, that's the thing. Transition, I'm so glad. Every show does transition now. And we get a chance to talk to Lawrence, and Lawrence gets a chance to talk to Bernstein and Layla, and they get a chance to talk to Mully and Haugh. But at the beginning, man, when the 4 of you, Dan McNeil, Terry Boers, you and Mike North, would get together, it was magic. And
it was wild.
It was wild. It was always wild. And tell people how transition ended, how it always ended.
Oh, what you mean with Dan and them telling us to basically get off the air?
Yeah, but like somebody had to mention the coach. Somebody had to say
the coach.
So somebody had to slide in.
All right, that's it.
Slide in and mention. It reminds me of coach that guy. And they're like, boom, and we're out of here. And that was that.
That's it, exactly.
God.
Oh, it was so much fun, man. We had a good group of people there. Tom was in the morning, Tom Scher. And then we took over at middays, and then Dan and Terry came on later. And then you had guys like Murph and all those people coming in, and it was just a ball, man. It really was. And it was like it was a lot like a club almost, where everybody had something to say and had thoughts on everything. And you look back on the guys, like the George Offmans of the world who had so much to add to our conversations. It was really fun, and I just was. I'm glad you guys get to be a part of all of that now, too, in the way that you are, and just realize how, what a great opportunity it is and take full advantage of it.
Dan Jiggets is our guest on behalf of EOC Audio as we're talking about score stories for 30 years of this great radio station, Sports Radio 670, The Score. You mentioned, Coach Ditka. many people believe like that validation kind of put the score. You guys were the stars, the hosts. People tuned in for you and the calls, of course. But then, what was it like when you think of your memories of the Ditka show and the craziness around that? Where do you go in your mind?
Oh my goodness, it was so much. It was crazy, because for a time we were doing them at his restaurants, and Mike would, he would always have something special for you. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
But you never knew quite what you were going to get out of Mike, but you always knew that it was going to be something fairly interesting. And Mike was, you look back at that time, and again, he was wrapping up his time with the Bears, and I think that was the hardest part for him, to kind of, try to move on to the next step in his life, when his identity was so tied into him as a head coach and him as a great player for the Bears. But we were fortunate enough, and I think that he was fortunate enough to have one another, because it certainly was a nice bridge for him to be able to continue to talk to the public here in Chicago, even after he was removed as the head coach of the Bears. And might I say that after that, we've seen some struggles up there in Lake Forest.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
Jiggs, it's obviously a sad memory, but we were talking before you came on. Once Ditka stopped doing it, Walter Payton became the regular contributor. What do you remember about the show that he did with you guys after he had the press conference and made the announcement about his diagnosis?
Well, it was, obviously, a devastating day. We had known, you see him week to week, you knew that he was having some issues, and we talked a little bit about it. But then the day that he made the announcement, it was a really, difficult day. But in typical Walter fashion, as we're walking through the restaurant, we're at Carlucci's out in Rosemont, and we're walking through the kitchen in the restaurant to get out to the other side so he can do some one-on-one interviews. And I've got my hands on his shoulders, and I'm walking behind him. And I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "Let's go, man." So he goes, "Careful, man, you're going to hit me in my liver." I said, "You don't even know where your liver is." And he reaches back with his hand and hits me in somewhere that wasn't my liver. And he goes, "Is that where it is?" That's Walter, okay?
Amazing.
That was the way that he was. And, he came out and did his interviews and everything, and he was a real trooper about it. But that was a brutal day, man. And there were more to follow, of course.
Yeah, but I remember that day, and all the news media was there, and it's like the Score was a place where things happened, Danny. It's like you just knew that's where to go. But Walter was fun as hell, right? You guys did a bunch of them. You remember Walter being incredibly entertaining, because I sure do on those weekly shows.
I tell you what, we did a show at his place, the Roundhouse, out in Aurora, Joliet, Aurora, and he loved having everybody out to that place because he could really do some entertaining at his own spot. And we did the show a couple times in the gazebo that was right in the middle of the Roundhouse, and Walter just had just so much fun. He wanted to show you every corner of the place and show you he had a little cigar bar there, so he brought all the cigars out and set them up on the gazebo. And, of course, we picked some of the best ones and took a handful of them. He didn't like that very much, but that's okay. But we had a great time with him out there. And of course, when, we're back downtown and we're doing the shows downtown, I think it was great for him because, he got a chance to kind of kick back and relax and visit with people. And that was one of the things he loved to do, man. He just loved to talk with fans and, people that love the Bears and love football. He was great that way.
Well, you're the best. You were always a gem, and just thank you for everything that you mean to the Score and you mean to the station, and personally, as I say, just so kind all the time. You sound great. Listeners love hearing you, man. Pipes sound good.
The other thing is I miss my guy Doug Buffone.
Oh.
We were teammates for a long time, and then obviously we worked together there at the Score. And his passing was another one that that hit me really hard. Some good guys that came down the pike, man. We just all worked hard and tried to do it right.